Welcome to Financial Clarity, the podcast dedicated to helping service-based small business owners achieve financial success. Join us as we demystify financial concepts, get practical tips from seasoned entrepreneurs, and discover strategies to increase profit and value. Hannah Smolinski here. I'm the host of the Financial Clarity podcast, where I connect successful entrepreneurs, financial experts, and leaders in the small business community. Past guests include Sarah Kapler, a digital agency owner who decided to move from Seattle to Germany after the pandemic to create a life that she and her family had been dreaming of, and Greg Crabtree, the author of Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits, who discussed with us the economic state of the American small business in 2023. So if either of those sound interesting to you, please go and check them out on your favorite podcast app. Today's episode is brought to you by my company, Clara CFO Group. Clara CFO is dedicated to providing financial clarity and profit maximizing solutions to small businesses. The team at Clara CFO are seasoned accounting professionals with a heart for small business. We help growth-minded entrepreneurs thrive through fractional CFO services and financial education. To learn more about Clara CFO Group and how we can help your business, visit claracfo.com. So I met today's guest at a conference for women business owners in Southern California back in 2018. The conference was hosted by Natalie Ekdahl, the owner of BizChicks, who has been a guest on this podcast. She was a guest a couple months ago. And I met so many amazing women at that conference, and I appreciate the community that Natalie has built over the years. And the conference doesn't run anymore, unfortunately, but you can still go check out what Natalie is doing by going to bizchicks.com. So today's guest is Amber de la Garza. Amber is the productivity specialist. Amber has more than a decade of experience helping small business owners maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most by improving their time management and elevating their productivity. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, writer, host of the Small Business Straight Talk podcast, and creator of the Leverage Lab. Amber shares her message on her weekly podcast and has straight talks both virtually and in person across the country for audiences that range from small business owners and associations to multinational corporations. Amber, thank you so much for being on the Financial Clarity podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to us chatting.
Yeah, well, I am selfishly very excited to have you on because productivity is a weakness of mine. So I'm going to be asking you some selfish questions, and I do that with some of my guests because I'm like, I have a captive audience, and I get to ask you what my problems are. I get to go straight to the expert. So, but before we get started with that, can you tell us how you came about to becoming a productivity specialist?
Yes. Well, like all good origin stories, there's lots of connecting dots that you do not realize when they're happening, but in hindsight had been there the whole time. Just in brief, my background was in real estate. I have a degree in real estate and business management. I did that for many, many years. And then I ended up becoming a trainer and then a business coach specifically for the top sales executives and teaching them how to leverage through growing with teams and business systems. That's where I was formally trained as a coach. And it was what I first got exposed to the power of coaching. However, during that time, while there was amazing systems, the training was excellent, the coaching program was really valuable. My clients kept saying some version of, I want to do this, but I have no time to work on my business. Like I'm so busy working in my business. And they would come to the next session and they would say, I really meant to do this. It just everything, my time got away from me. Some version. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like at their fingertips. Like these resources are being given to them that can completely change their business. But there was a gap. Now, I didn't know at that time. Fast forward, that was in 2004, 2005. Fast forward to 2010, I had my son. I took my maternity and my vacation, and I decided I wasn't going back to corporate. Now, at that time, I was not doing coaching, but I was not going to go back to the position I was in. And I went in and quit, and they were like, good for you for choosing family over business. Do you want to stay on as a consultant? And I was like, I don't know. I came in here to quit. I was going to stay at home with my son. Let me talk to my husband. This like changes everything. So that's when I got a piece of like, wow, I can do only the things I love doing, because what I was in management and what they brought me back for was systems, processes, training. They were doing acquisitions in other markets. And I didn't have to deal with any of the other corporate BS, the politics, and I didn't have to work a 40-hour week. So I did that for 2 years and remoted in. This is back when you actually had to remote into your computer at wherever corporate was at. And during really early on, so by the time my son was 2 months old, I was like, I'm going to start a business. Like, if they hired me as a consultant, like, surely I can do this. But I wanted to raise my son and stay focused on that. So I set a goal to start my business on his second birthday. And I did that May 15th, 2012. I
Nice.
started my business. And when I thought of the business, it kept just coming back to me over and over again of, can time management and productivity be a skill set? Or is it true that it's a genetic gene and some personalities it's for and others there's not? And we're just kind of victim to whatever life gave us. And I read every book. I studied the topic endlessly. And what I came out with was absolutely it's a skill set that could be learned.
Mm.
So then that led me to, this has got to be a value. Like, if business owners are lacking managing themselves and managing time, because and they can't do the things that allow them to reach their goals, this seems like a skill set they'd want to learn. I didn't know anyone that did it. And I just started my business and I started talking to small business owners and figured it out along the way. And there is a huge market for it. It's a huge challenge and it's a skill set that can be learned so that it makes it easier for business owners to achieve their goals.
Mhm. I love that. So when you first started out, how were you talking to people? Like, how did how were people hiring you, I guess?
Well,
Because that's always, like, the thing, right? You're like, "I know this is a thing people need, but how do I sell it?"
oh,
That
so
part.
good. So, first of all, it wasn't as shiny as that. I did not come out the productivity specialist. I didn't even come out as time management. Uh, I actually started out as organizing consultant. Like, I wanted to come in and help them with their business systems and organize them. And like, if they didn't have time to do it, then I could help them do it. And that was short lived. And here's why: words matter. Organizing is seen as a luxury, efficiency in a business is seen as a necessity. So then I changed to efficiency consultant and I started getting clients doing the same thing, same services. But then I was like, interesting, they're not keeping it going after I leave,
Mm,
right? Like this isn't about they didn't have the time and I could teach them the systems and why these systems mattered. They fundamentally hadn't changed any of their habits, behaviors, their relationship with time and time management. And so it was very early on that I switched to the productivity specialist and specialized in time management. So it was an evolution. It wasn't as clear cut as, you know, we would like it to be.
mhm,
So then once I nailed that down and understood that there was a need for that, I spoke everywhere.
mhm,
Anywhere that had an audience of small business owners, every networking event, every luncheon, every like local association, I would speak for free,
mm,
because once I got into a room and spoke about the topic, it resonated with many of the people in the room.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But let's be real, nobody wakes up and says, today I need a productivity specialist. This will solve my problems. Like, they don't Google that. So I had to be where people were at to explain to them what their challenges were and that there was a solution. And
Mm.
then that has evolved over time of educating people that all these symptoms you may not be associating with productivity or time management, but are rooted in that. And here's how I can help you.
I love that. Do you find that the majority of people who are really resonating with your message are or resonating with the problem are business owners? Or is it people in careers, like in employee roles? Like what are you finding?
Yeah, well, you open this up that you have a heart for small business. So
Mhm.
it's a very skewed answer. I love
Yeah.
small business owners. So
Yeah.
small is business owners is who it resonates with, but only because it's confirmation bias. I
Yeah.
speak to rooms of business owners. I go to conferences of business owners. However, that is my coaching, but my speaking arm is productivity and time management, but that's for employees in corporate.
Mm,
And it's different strategies and it's a different problem. And you talk about it honestly, really different than you do for a small business owner.
mhm.
And so I love the like who I choose to work with every day are small business owners. And I have this other like kind of arm to my business where I speak at corporations.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I mean, I'm just thinking about like when I was working at EY in public accounting. I mean, I always felt like I had too much on my plate, but I never really felt the overwhelm the same way that I have now in my small business as running this small business. And I feel like also because it's fairly hard to identify the competing priorities and then what do I need to do first? And it feels like I have 10,000 things maybe that need my attention rather than, the 10 things at the time. So
Right.
I don't know if maybe there is potentially more complexity potentially with small business owners. I don't know. You tell me.
Yes, I think it is because for most employees, they have a specific role and their tasks fall within that role. And, for a small business owner, we also like the buck stops with us. So we're not just carrying what we do, but we're mentally bandwidth carrying what team members are doing. And the risks are very high. This isn't, oh, if I mess up, I might get written up or a bad performance evaluation. And okay, worst case, maybe you get fired. That would take some steps. Oftentimes, for business owners, like how we manage our priorities is the success or failure of our businesses. And that can be heavy. That can feel really heavy. Also, employees generally have very clear lines and boundaries to a work day and a non work day.
Mm,
For many business owners, that boundary is very blurred. And so now we're talking about, well, how do I show up energetically in my personal life with my loved ones? And how am I showing up with time and energetically in my business? And it can get very blurred and messy. So I think it's very, very different for a lot of reasons. That probably could be a whole nother episode. But for small business owners, specifically, like service based business owners, we're always balancing between doing the things that bring in the money and the things that keep the business kind of going. Like, y-
yeah.
right? Like the things that bring in money keep the business going too. But to make the money, there's all these other things that have to happen, like marketing, right? Just for example. And so, with our time being divided from everything from taking the trash out to being the hiring manager to understanding finances to delivering the service, um, any given day can feel like I'm not choosing the right thing. And so nothing feels right. And then we
Mm,
get into this whole not trusting, like not trusting our processes, not trusting we're choosing the best thing. It can get overwhelming is I guess the word that comes to mind that, it feels muddled. But I often get asked, I guess I'll just answer this, but I often get asked, like, how do you define productivity? Right. So, some people, it's only when they're making money, or it could be if, lots of different definitions. But for a small business owner, I actually define it as like a framework because we all have different goals and we all have different responsibilities in our businesses. So we are being our most productive selves when we're investing our best time into our best activities. Now, of course, that warrants, well, what's our best time and what's our best activities?
mhm.
Our best time is focused, distraction free. I'm showing up my best. I'm doing my best work. Like I have my hand raised. Who here is listening that does not want more of that time, right? Where you're like, I'm doing my best. I'm sorry, not doing my best work, but I am showing up. I have my best time. And then you're doing it on the activities that actually mattered for you to reach your goals,
Yes.
right? And so yours may be different than mine. I have very specific high value activities that I consider being most productive. but that's based on my business strategy, my business goals, my team, and how they support me. But it's my job to show up as often as possible in my high value activities.
Mm-hmm. I would assume that a lot of times people have not done the work to know what are their high value activities
Yeah.
versus the just things that they feel very that like urgent and important. They feel like it's very, they need to do it and nobody else is going to do it, so they have to do it.
Yeah.
And I get bogged down in that stuff a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you think of a service based business owner, the only way you're making money is if you're providing a service, whether it's you or someone on your team, you're in exchange for that service. Well, that is a double edged sword because, of course, that's highest value. But if you have your head down and you're just delivering the service that's bringing in the money, you're going to pop your head up and your pipeline's empty. If
Yes.
nobody's been spinning the plate on marketing and visibility and letting the world know what it is you do, but you have told yourself, it's okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is servicing the client, but that's a recipe for disaster. And
Mhm.
if you don't show up in marketing and visibility, now you're not having sales conversations. And if you're not having sales conversations one day, it doesn't matter if you want to show up and serve the clients, there's not going to be enough there.
Yeah.
So the very thing that we know we should be doing could be the thing that if we have too much of can actually sink the business. And we haven't allocated our time across the board and the things that will keep the business healthy and profitable.
Hmm. I mean, that concept of the service roller coaster, I guess we could call it. It's
Hmm.
been brought up a couple times in our podcast where, it's do, sell, do, sell. And, we, as service-based business owners, it's really easy to get caught into that trap of kind of putting the head down and doing the work and then looking up and going, okay, what's next? But like, there's nothing next because you
That and
didn't
the
do the
marketing
work.
and visibility take a long time. Like
Yes.
there's a huge lead and it's an unpredictable lead time. So it's
Mhm.
not like you can just go do that marketing task, check, okay, I'm going to get the results.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it's not that. So, what
Yeah.
that requires is that we're showing up consistently or we're supervising, holding accountable someone that's showing up consistently in that marketing and visibility because maybe I do need to be more in the servicing client area. Um, so, just this is how I explain it, but I call them buckets. Okay. They could be departments. Like
Yeah.
every big company has departments. I call them buckets. But if a business owner is asking where would they find their highest value activities, they will find it in marketing and visibility is bucket number one, how you let the world know what it is you do and how you do it. Bucket number two is sales. Bucket number three is services or products, creating product, updating the product. And then number four is leadership,
Mm.
leading your team, training your team, communicating with your team. Now, is there a lot of other stuff that has to happen in the business? Yes. But sometimes we can be showing up in, say, for me, I show up consistently in servicing the clients, but I have a team that is supporting with all the extra administrative, most of all the other behind the scenes, because I've chosen to not hire someone else to help me in servicing the clients.
Yeah.
Now, in the marketing and visibility bucket, there's I'm not kidding, probably 75 tasks, right? But I only do 3 of them, but
Mm.
they're the highest value, and I outsource everything else and make sure that us as a company are showing up consistently in marketing and visibility. It's just not my highest value to be the only one showing up in that area because it's such a heavy lift.
Mhm. Okay, let's talk about so you're a service-based business. You do coach clients, but I mean, I would also call you like an expert business. So
Yeah.
you are an expert in a topic and productivity, and you have not chosen to hire somebody else and train them how you do things and have them go and coach other companies. So that's one way to grow a service-based business is you duplicate the thing that you're doing and you have lots of people delivering that service. You have done that differently, and you have decided to grow the business in other ways. Can you talk a little bit about some of the choices you've made there, and even if you've had any conflict there, and how to grow the business?
Yeah. So the way in which you're sharing is to have a framework that can be taught and those coaches can be trained and then coach on that framework. I definitely understand that's an option. And honestly, if I look around, I would be like, oh my gosh, anyone that does that is quote unquote most more successful, right? They've got bigger companies, bigger gross revenue. I filter every decision like that through my own vision of success. And
Yes.
my vision of success, when I even when it's vague and it's not all colored in, has never been me leading a bunch of other coaches. It
Hmm.
just isn't. And so if I can't see that for myself and that's not going to be what brings me joy in my vision of success, I chose not to do that. So what I needed to do is figure out how to, you know, do what brings me the most joy, which by the way, I freaking love coaching my clients. Like, I mean, I think I have so much gratitude every single day for the opportunity to get to show up and do the thing that I really believe I've been meant to do. So if I have that kind of gratitude, I just want to do more of it.
Right.
Right. So for me in my business, I coach, but I only have so much time. And so there is a time trade and there's a cap at the income that can come in. There's only so many levers. You charge more or you work more hours or a combination of both.
Hmm.
I cap my hours and my work very solidly because what another vision of success is that I have um, a lot of time off. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm talking like 8 to 10 weeks a year. I don't work past 3 o'clock. Like every school holiday, I'm off. Like that's the life that I've chosen. So for me to create a business that I can provide this service that is of value to my clients and in the container of what I feel like is a vision of success is what I've created.
Hmm.
So to do that, if I'm only working 25, 30 hours a week, they need to be filled with only my highest value activities. And so I have delegated off and hired a team that's behind the scenes, that's not client facing, that handles everything else other than three things. Um, Servicing my clients. So that would be their one on one coaching or group coaching. Actually, it's four things. The other way I service my clients is speaking. So I'm the only one speaking and going to
Right.
events. And then it's podcasting. So I co create my episodes, meaning I am literally collaborating with my content manager, writing it in real time virtually. Once it's written, I record it and I never touch it again. And everything's happening behind the scenes. And then I do interviews like this
Hmm.
because nobody wakes up and needs a productivity specialist unless you hear me. So luckily I'm not doing all those luncheons, but I do probably 50 to 60 interviews a year
Yeah.
on podcasts and,
Mhm.
different things. So that's how I make connections and have people find out about me. Um, that's it. And discovery calls, but that's it. Everything else is handled behind the scenes. So I've been able to maximize those hours, but to be honest, there's still a cap to my income.
Mhm.
So then it became how do I provide exceptional service, so much value that I can raise my rates,
Mhm.
that it's so valuable to my clients that that rate is justified. That was the only lever left because I wasn't willing to give up more time to work with
Right.
more clients.
Yeah. I love that. Can you tell us a little bit of what that team looks like that does support you? Because I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, wow, that's really great. I'd love to, be able to just do those like really high value things. But what does that look like from that supporting staff that you have? What are some of
Yeah,
those roles?
perfect. I'm happy to answer and I'll just have the disclosure. My business model is different than other people's
Definitely.
business models.
Yes.
And, compared to even my clients whom I coach, I have a very simplified business model. So I just want to give all those. Don't judge my back end by your back end. That's what I want to say. Okay, so we have Crystal, who is my content manager. She's been with me for 10 years. She
Wow.
started as an assistant. And I trained her on everything social media, podcasting. She's literally like my second brain. So anything content related, she handles. She's who pitches me to podcasts and schedules me and She's also who finds the guests for my podcast and gets them on. So she handles all of that.
Nice.
And then we have Lacey. She's my executive assistant, and she handles all client onboarding, customer service, and my group coaching programs, all scheduling, contracts, and any of the random emails that come in. She handles all of that. And then we have like a tech VA. So she's in the Philippines. Her name is Sabrina, and she handles like my funnels, my back end, the website, and all of that kind of stuff that it takes to run a business online and to sell products. I have a couple products, and that takes a whole tech side, and she handles that. That's my whole team.
Yeah, I love it. So is that something that you know how to do all those things, but you just don't? Or is it
Well,
something that you at this point that you I mean, because
that's a great question.
yeah.
No, right? I did not start with this team. Like I had to learn these things, and I didn't have all that stuff hard at the beginning, so I had to learn it.
Mhm.
To be honest, I built my entire website. Now it gets tweaked, but like I learned how to build a website. And to me, that was fun and interesting. So now that it's built, we just keep adding on to it. Um, the images. This is a funny story. So I love doing images because I told myself that in Canva, this is my creative outlet. Oh no, I handed over to Crystal and I'm like, what was I thinking? I thought I was talented. That was crap. So, yes,
Yeah.
do I technically, if she left me, could I do it? I think I'm spoiled now. I wouldn't do it. And probably shouldn't have been doing it if you saw the artwork. But at the time, before I had someone to outsource it to, yeah, I knew how to do it.
Yeah.
Um, my schedule, like I love a good calendar. Like, obviously, this is like the underlying of who I am. And now, if I try to get in there, I'm sure I'm messing something up. I literally divert everything to Lacey. And I even tell a client if it's like, they're like, oh, can we reschedule next session? And I say, yes, but I can't touch the calendar. We're going to let Lacey take care of that. So, did I know how to do it? Do I know how to do it? Could I figure it out? Yes. And something magical happens once you have support. I got this mental bandwidth back. I
Yeah.
didn't need to fine tune doing images. I didn't need to stay like sharp with the whole calendaring thing. I got to use my brain for providing more value, thinking about where the business is going next, strategizing, which is the big gift, not just the time back.
For sure. I like that because I think it's so easy to be like, well, I can just do that real quick. I can just do that real quick. And then before you know it, you have an hour gone that could have been potentially delegated to somebody else. But I know that's a trap that I fall into a lot. Speaking of traps, what are some of the things that you see that common productivity killers that small businesses are or small business owners are
Yeah.
doing to themselves?
Yeah, I like this question. There's obviously a lot of traps, but the one that I think can be solved the quickest is going from reactive to proactive with
Mm,
regards to our day and our schedule. Most business owners are firefighting, they're responding to what's in their inbox, they're responding to what's top of mind, or the client is screaming, or a deadline that's like literally tomorrow. If we can get ourselves out of being reactive to all of those things, we start making higher, better decisions for ourselves and for our business. And when we're in a reactive mode, we can't play. It's not like basketball where you go back and forth, offense, defense. My son plays basketball, right? Like you go back and forth so quickly. It's like you're playing defense. That's it. Like
yeah.
that's your role in your business. And what your business needs you to do is play offense, think ahead, strategize. Like, what's the best use of your time? Who on your team needs your support? So that's what we need to have happen. And the quickest way to make that shift is to plan every day.
Mhm.
And I call it a daily wrap. So it's called Daily Review and Action Plan, RAP. And it's about capturing everything that just came into us. And I can't help but to use like my hands and say it's a funnel. Like we have tasks coming into us via our Slack channel and our task management system and our team. And we got Voxer and we got a client text messaging us. And all of these things are coming in to make yesterday's task list outdated, right? It's coming into you faster than you can just be processing in real time. What are my priorities?
Mm-hmm.
So step number one is you're gathering all of those action items and updating your to-do list. Some of us, I don't go anywhere without my steno notepad, right? Okay, there you go. So as high tech as I am, it often starts with I have a thought, an idea, I'm on with a client, I write a note. So this is someplace I'm going to go to and say, are there any action items I need to update my to-do list on? And then step number two is to look at tomorrow and take a preview of like what's the context. Are you in meetings all day? Is it an office day where you're working? Is there any meetings or events you need to be prepared for that you kind of need a little bit of a lead time? So you're going to update your to-do list based on that of like anything that comes in, but really getting context as to how much time do I have to actually work through the to-do list.
Yeah.
And then number three is a mind sweep because the thing that we all default to is our memory, right? So even if we don't have the pen and paper or we have a task management system or a sticky note, in times of stress, we often default to keeping it in our brains and it's not working for you. I don't care what your brain is trying to tell you. It does not
Mm-hmm.
work for you. It's not dependable and accountable and will often break under a stress test of a lot of work. You cannot remember everything in your brain. So part of the 5 steps is just doing a mind sweep. Is there anything else I need to add to the to-do list? Anything else?
Mm.
And I like to think of this as like, say you were on with a client and they just happen to tell you like, oh, I just got engaged. And you're like, oh, I'm going to send them flowers. Like you tell your head, right? But
Yeah.
nothing got written down. This is that chance to say, okay, who else did I talk to? That's right. I wanted to send Cindy flowers. Get it on your to-do list. That's the only way it's not going to fall through the cracks because we all have good intentions, but we need a process to capture those.
Mm-hmm.
And then step number 4 is to prioritize. And this isn't prioritizing the whole list. I call BS on that. There's no way we can. We can only say, what is the priority for tomorrow?
Mm.
Because priority is in context of the other things that need our time and attention. And priority is also in context of how much time we have
Yeah.
available to do the thing. So then you prioritize it. And then step number 5 is going to be to schedule it. And this is the key is that once you've determined what your priorities are, you're going to put it on your calendar and you're going to answer 3 questions. What am I specifically doing? When am I doing it? And for how long do I think I'm going to do it for? Is it 30 minutes? Is it 15 minutes? Is it 90 minutes? Because time is very abstract. We
Mm-hmm.
know this. I bet you're pretty time optimistic on what you can get done in a day, right?
Oh, yes.
And nothing, like everything takes a little, like only 20 minutes, when in reality it's a 45-minute project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're optimistic. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but we're wrong. We're often very, very wrong. So when we start working it and doing this data review every day, you start rewiring that data loop where you say, yeah, that should take 20 minutes. And you're like, oh my gosh, it didn't last time and it didn't the next time. It's truly a 1-hour task
Yeah.
or a project. So you start getting better at estimating how long things take, but also you start running out of available time on your schedule. You're not going to tell yourself you have 10 things to do. You're going to tell yourself, I get to do these 4 things because that's exactly what I have time for. And then you do that every day and you start getting better at time management, better at understanding your capacity. You get better at being realistic and not feeling shameful and like you're beating yourself up because you had 10 things and you only got 4 things. Like the reality is you only had time for those 4 things.
Mm.
So
You weren't scrolling your Instagram feed for 2 hours of the day, which
right.
me.
Right. Because, what we're not talking about is once you make the plan and put it on your calendar, there's this whole nother thing about mindset, self-sabotage, boundaries,
Hmm.
team members, distractions, interruptions. We haven't even gotten to that part. But I'm just saying, if you can just get to scheduling it,
Yeah.
once that becomes a habit, then we can start pulling out, okay, so what are your tendencies?
Yeah.
What keeps sabotaging you actually showing up to do the thing you said you were going to do? And you can start working on those.
So, do you recommend doing that at the end of a workday for the next
Yeah.
day? Or was there like an ideal time to do your wrap?
Yeah. So, by the way, I didn't say this should take 15 minutes. That's it. I know it took me a while to explain it, but like once you start getting into it, it's just you're updating today's information and tweaking and making a plan for tomorrow.
Hmm.
Take 15 minutes. And it can happen today for tomorrow, but it can also happen in the morning. There's
Hmm.
some pros and cons. For me, today could have been a dumpster fire, and I'm very optimistic tomorrow's a better day. So I'm going to take that optimism and plan today for tomorrow. It's a reset. Also, by doing it tonight for tomorrow, we're also doing something else. And we're separating decision making. I'm using my hands. So we're separating decision making from the doing. And when we separate those two things, we're actually using two parts of our brain. The strategic decision making is different than the doing. And when we mix those together, it's energetically, it can drain you. We start getting decision fatigue and we use different filters. So I don't know about you. I don't wake up feeling the same way every day.
Yeah.
So there's some days where I'm like, I'm ready to nail it. It's going to be a great day. And then there's other days where I'm like, I don't feel like doing that. I don't want to do that. Like, are you kidding me? Right.
Yeah.
Well, what if I feel like that maybe more days? I'm listening to that feeling. And that's how I'm making my decisions of what I want to do, what I feel like doing, what's got my attention. But if you separate the two, my job tomorrow, just execute the schedule.
Mm.
And so then you're like filtering of like, I feel like doing it. What if your employee came in and you gave them a to-do list and they said, hey, Hannah, oh, my kids were really hard to get out of the house today. I don't really feel like working on that project. So I thought I would just like stay in my email and scroll social media. How do you feel about that, boss? But we do it all the time to ourselves.
Yeah.
So those are some of the pro reasons why separating it. Now,
Yeah.
why would you not want to do it in the evening? Um, Hannah, sometimes we're at the end of the day and we're exhausted. Like just we gave it all and it's not the time to be making those decisions and we're like mentally exhausted. Then I say, if you're fresh in the morning, then do it in the morning.
Yeah.
The other reason I would say to not do it in the evening is if you don't end your day in the same place. So there's if you're out on sales or you're installing something or you're working with a client at their location, it's very hard to anchor that habit because you're ending your day in a different place at a different time. And so the key here is to be consistent. And chances are you're consistently starting your day at the same time and
Mm.
in the same location. And so in that case, I would say it's more about consistency and then to do it in the morning.
That's about creating the habit that
Yeah.
you're talking about with the anchoring it to something else that you're doing. And
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, I like that. Yeah, that's really helpful. I mean, I could see it definitely. I like the flexibility of like whatever works for you and what your work life looks like. You can find something that works for you here.
Yeah.
Um, I like that. It doesn't have to be this one specific way that it must be done. Because I think
Yeah.
that's where people push back sometimes on these types of um, ideas or things. They want to get better, but they're like, I'm not that person. It's never going to happen. And so they just toss the whole thing out.
And I think that if you're being taught anything around time management or productivity, that they say this one size fits all solution will solve your problems, they're wrong. I would go to debate anybody that had that opinion. But what I believe is that there's foundational principles like planning your day. Now, how you plan your day, I just gave you a 5 step framework. Some of my clients is 6 steps, some of it's 7 because they have a little bit of customization and they also use that time to create a list to delegate to their team. So
Mhm.
the nuance of it and the time that works for you, I think absolutely we are all different. And what at the end of the day matters is that the foundational strategy works for you and you're consistent. Everything in between, I believe, is up for customization.
Hmm. I like that.
And before we go into the next thing, I just want to say this. Also, I've been doing this for 13 years. I plan my day every day. My clients plan their day, and I've never seen a day go as planned.
Yes.
Okay. I just need everybody to hear that. This is not a magic pill. There's so much unpredictable, but by planning your day, you're going to put yourself in the driver's seat. You'll be better equipped to move and shift and adapt, but you will get more of what you plan to get done than if you had no plan at all.
Uh,
But I love to just share that because some people feel like they're doing it wrong if it doesn't look exactly the same at the end of the day as the beginning of the day. And I'm here to tell you it will never look exactly as you planned it, and you're doing it exactly right. It's okay.
mhm. I love that because, yeah, we have to stay flexible. I mean, stay flexible to what comes up, but not I think there's probably, like, flexibility, but also having that thing of, like, I know I still need to prioritize these things before whatever gets thrown at us in the day and whatever,
Yeah.
seems urgent in the moment for XYZ reason.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is great. I love it. I feel like I could ask you 1,000 more questions. And you also have 7 years of podcast content.
Yes.
You have been a podcaster for 7 years. So if anybody is resonating with some of these topics and there is a podcast episode specifically for your question, I guarantee it. Like if you
Yeah.
go to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast, you will look to see there is so much gold in the backlog of your podcast. Obviously the current stuff too, but you have basically answered every productivity question I imagine there probably is. So
Yeah, I feel like I've answered it in various ways. We all need to hear things differently at different
and
times.
we need to hear
So
it
that's served
20,000
well.
times sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate you telling them about that. I would be really happy if wherever they're listening to this episode, they tune into Small Business Straight Talk.
Yes, for sure. So unfortunately we have to wrap up, but I have another question for you. Before I do that, I also want to point people to your website. So we talked about the podcast, but then the website is amberdelagarza.com. So you
Yes.
can go and check her out there if you're interested in coaching or speaking, or you want to find the podcast and look at some of the other resources that she has. You can check those out there. So Amber, what is your favorite business book?
Hmm. All right. So my favorite business book is Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. I'm sure this isn't a new one for you.
Yeah, heard it
Uh,
before.
but for me, it was when I read that, it was a huge shift in mindset and how I made decisions in my business.
Mm,
And I think the biggest mindset set shift that I took away was that I'm creating this business, this asset that is actually meant to serve me and my family. Like I am serving my clients, like ultimately that's my heart, but also it's to provide a certain type of lifestyle for my family, and that's okay. And then gave me the framework to, you know, pull that a piece. The framework matches with the way that my mind already works. So understanding the whole profit first framework was easy for me to implement, but it was the mindset shift. It was what it did for how I approached my financials and my business, how I charged, when I decided to reinvest versus take a profit, like all of that
yeah, that's
shifted.
huge. I love that because I think, as small business owners, sometimes we just get into this like, hey, I'm doing the work, I'm doing the work, I'm doing the work. But then at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, but also this business needs to serve you. It
Mhm.
it doesn't just need to serve your customers or your clients or whatever. Like it actually has to produce a profit because you can't go too long without making any money.
Yeah,
We'd go and get a job normally. So the business has to have some kind of positive impact on your personal financial situation. If not I mean, ideally right from the start, but sometimes
yeah.
it takes a little while for that to happen. But you do kind of have to think about it like that. And there's all the sorts of things of making sure your business and your personal are separate and everything like that.
Yeah.
But from the profits of our business, we are able to compensate ourselves as business owners. And we have a lot of videos about compensation on our YouTube channel. So if anybody is looking for more dialogue around that, they can go and check that out. But I love that. And it's nice when you have an aha moment,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
this is changing something important.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen it too, though. Like for a business owner that doesn't take profit or adequate profits from the business, like a salary, it contributes to burnout and
Yeah.
fatigue and so much of the mindset that can sabotage your productivity and how you show up. Like it's all interrelated. And I don't think in the early stages of my business, I quite understood what that path would have looked like if I had continued it. But I see it all the time now that if a business owner is not prioritizing profitability, it's stressful in their personal lives, but it's also very what's the word, like defeating. Like you're working so
Yeah.
hard, you end the day and you're exhausted and you don't feel like you have something to show for that. You can't do that for too long.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And we don't want that. We do not.
Nope. Not at
Want to
all.
have a sustainable business that lasts a long time. You need to be profitable and you need to compensate yourself fairly for the work
Mhm.
that's being done. Well, Amber, this has been so good. How else can people learn more about what you do and potentially, find out more from you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, you hit the highlights. So the podcast, my website, we do have a quiz. It's 3 minutes. You can find that quiz on my website. It's going to tell you what your biggest challenge is with taking your business to the next level. And then it's going to give you a personalized, curated playlist of the exact episodes to listen to on the podcast. So
Oh,
when we have 300 and I don't know, 40 episodes, it's not very productive to go listen to all of them. What would be productive is go find out what your biggest challenge is. And I'm going to tell you the exact episodes to listen to that will solve those challenges for you. So you can get that quiz over at amberdelagarza.com/quiz.
awesome. I love it. I'm going to go take that quiz because then it saves all that time.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for
Awesome.
having me, Hannah.
Thanks for being on the Financial Clarity Podcast. I really appreciate it, Amber. Thanks for listening to the Financial Clarity Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about today's episode and click subscribe on your favorite podcast app.